Hello sa tanan. I am Azul J.P. Gaspar, a former student of Aklan State University, particularly the School of Management Sciences. I am now a certified public accountant, and in this video, ay pagaturan ko kamo it all about the accounting cycle. So to start the topic, let's first talk about what is accounting and kung anraya ay importante, especially sa mga businesses. So accounting is defined as the process of identifying, recording, and communicating economic information to permit informed judgments and decisions by users of information. It is also said nga accounting ay ginatawag na language of business. Kasi di ba the goal in every business ay mag-earn it profit or kumita. And through accounting, madali natin masayran kung nagakita gid man do sa ka-business. The key product it accounting ay ginatawag na financial statements. Di karagi na buo do mga financial information nga makabulig sa pag-ubra at mga business decisions. Dahil ang mga financial statements ay ginatawag na statement of financial position or balance sheet, statement of financial performance or income statement, statement of cash flows, and statement of changes in equity. So let's talk about the balance sheet and income statement. The balance sheet ay nagapakita at mga assets, liabilities, and capital at business. Di karahay pwede naton makita if okay pa the financial status in business. May capacity pa baga o business na magbayad it mga utang? Or kaya baga it sang ka-business nga magbakal pa it mga additional na gamit or supplies? And iba pang mga questions nga pwedeng makabulig sa pag-ubra it aton nga mga desisyon. Sa balance sheet ay makita man naton do ginatawag nga accounting equation, which is assets is equals to liabilities plus owner's equity or capital. Dahil tatlong elements, assets, liabilities, and capital are the three essential elements of balance sheet. Do assets, dahil hayakat mga pag-aari it business. Dahil yung mga ginagamit para makapag-generate it income or revenue to business. Ina-classify raya into current and non-current. Pag hinhambal ng current assets, ibig sabihin kara ay pwede mo ma-convert sa cash or mabaligya or magamit within a year or less than a year. For example, ito yung current assets ay cash, accounts receivable, inventory, mga office supplies, and the like. Pag hinhambal mo na natin ng non-current asset, dahil hayakat mga pwede magamit for more than 1 year. For example, hay mga machineries, equipments, mga furniture, buildings, and etc. Reliabilities hay itong mga obligasyon or utang in business. It is also classified as current and non-current. The current liabilities hay kat mga kailangan bayaran or mga utang na kailangan bayaran in less than 1 year or within 1 year, such as accounts payable, short-term notes payable, and iba pa. Pag non-current liabilities, ibig sabihin kara ay dahil mga utang na pwede pa bayaran in more than 1 year or may more than 1 year na terms to pay. For example, hay kat mga bank loans, bonds payable, or mga long-term notes payable. Alright? So the last element mata at balance sheet hay kat capital. Dahil yung ginatawag na residual interest, it assets because ina-represent na to part it asset wherein may owner's right or may owner's claim. Dahil yung mga capital investments it owner or shareholders. Included man sa iya sa capital to profit nga na-earn it business. Next, hay kat statement of financial performance or kat income statement or also minatawag man yung mga statement of profit or loss. Dahil ma-report ay nagapakita it revenue and expenses as well as the profit or loss it business. The revenue ay kat mga earnings or kita from rendering services or sa pagbaligya. And the expenses ay kat mga cost sa pagpaligya or mga gastos for the operations and administrative purposes. So that's it for a short introduction about accounting. So, maproceed kita mahara sa steps of the accounting cycle. The accounting cycle is a set of steps or procedures that are repeated in the same order every period. It is used to record transactions and prepare financial statements. So the steps in accounting cycle starts with analysis of the transactions through documentation, followed by journalizing, posting, trial balance, adjusting entries and posting adjusting entries, adjusted trial balance, financial statements, closing entries, and closing trial balance, and it ends with reversing entry, which is done at the beginning of every period. So let's first start with documentation. The starting point of accounting cycle are the transactions and events. Pero, kailangan na natin i-identify kung do isang transaction is financial or non-financial in nature. Do mga magamit man lang natin to proceed in the next step, which is journalizing, are those that qualifies as financial transactions. Meaning, tayo ng mga transaction na pwede ma-measure ang may effect sa financial structure or accounts in business. For example, payment to suppliers, additional investment, nag-borrow in money, withdrawals, and the like. So, dahil mga examples in financial transactions. Do mga non-financial transactions matahay kat mga uwain effect sa financial structure, like for example is hiring of employees. The mga financial transactions should be evidenced by source documents. Dahil documents do atong magiging basis sa pag-report. For example, ay mga official receipts, invoice, deposit slips, electric bills, and anything that could prove na may una nga financial transaction. Sa pag-analyze its source documents, we need to identify also kung anong accounts do affected. Is it asset? Is it liability? Capital? Revenue? Or is it expense? Then, tanawan natin kung do effect sa account ay either increase or decrease. Because dial analysis will be used in the next step, which is journalizing. But before kita mag-proceed sa journalizing, it would be better if the business ay may una galing na nakaprepare na chart of accounts. Dahil ay mga specific list of assets, liabilities, capital, revenue, and expense para upon analyzing the transactions, ay sayo kami natin or ma-identify kami natin kung ano mga accounts do i-include sa journal. The journal is the chronological record of events or business transactions, showing all the effects of each transaction in terms of debits and credits. Pag inhambang ang chronological, it means nga sunod-sunod according sa date in transactions do pag-record. Sa journal nakita natin the columns for date, accounts title, as well as its explanation of the transaction, and the last two columns would be for debits and credits. It also has two types. We have a general journal and special journal. Sa general journal, ina-record do tanan na transactions other than those recorded in the special journal. Sa special journal ay ginagamit for specific transactions such as cash receipts, cash disbursements, sales journal, and purchases journal. Let us now discuss kung paano gamiton the journal. In journalizing or recording transactions, we use the term double entry system. Pag inhambang nga double entry, it means na in every transaction, may una nga corresponding debit and credit entry. Also, the total debit amount and the total credit amount should always be equal. Hindi pwede nga debit lang atong entry sa isang transaction and hindi man pwede nga credit lang. Dapat may una gid nga debit at may una gid nga credit side. Para mas madali do pag-identify naton sa debit and credit accounts, Let's take a look at the summary of debits and credits. So for assets and expenses as well as withdrawals, it is debit pag the transaction will have an increasing effect to them, and credit mata pag decrease. For liabilities, capital, and revenues, the entry will be debit pag dayang accounts ay nag-decrease and credit pag dayang accounts ay nag-increase. Pwede man nga tandaan ninyo the word nga dealer. Do DEA, daya do mga pag nag-increase, high debit, at pag nag-decrease, high credit. Do D stands for dividends or withdrawals. Also, the letter E, it stands for expenses, and the letter A stands for assets. Again, these three accounts, pag nag-increase, debit to entry, and pag nag-decrease, credit to entry. Do letter L mata, it stands for liabilities. The letter A stands for equity or capital, and the letter R stands for revenue or income. Dayang last three letters or last three words mata, tandaan ninyo nga pag nag-increase, doon na nga entry would be credit. Pero pag dayang accounts ay nag-decrease, doon na magiging entry will be debit. For example, on January 2, 2021, Mr. De La Cruz invests 35,000 cash to start a business. So in this transaction, the accounts involved will be cash and capital. Sa cash, since nagsugod mo sa business, it means nga nag-increase the cash in business. And since the cash is under the asset section of the balance sheet, it means man nga the asset ay nag-increase. Therefore, the journal for cash will be debit. Sa capital mata, since it's investment, it also means nga nag-increase the capital. So the journal for this will be credit sa capital account. So in short, the journal entry for the transaction wherein Mr. De La Cruz invests 35,000 cash to the business will be debit to cash for 35,000 and credit to Mr. De La Cruz capital also for 35,000. Take note na in making a journal or in writing a journal, do not forget to write the date of the transaction as well as anong description para later on, pag nag-review or nag-check the transactions, ay may atong na reference kung saan kung imaw na record at kung ano raya nga transaction. Also, take note na both the debit side as well as the credit side ay dapat na equal with permit. Hindi pwede nga magkaiba sandang daywa. Next example. On the same day, January 2, Mr. De La Cruz purchased supplies worth 5,000 pesos on credit. Sa dayang transaction, the pag-purchase its supplies will cause an increase in asset. And since dayang man haging bakaw on credit, meaning uwa pa nabayaran, it will also increase the liability. In short, the entry for this transaction will be debit to supplies for 5,000 and credit also to accounts payable for the same amount, which is 5,000 pesos. Next, on January 10, the business billed a customer for services rendered amounting to 25,000. Pag inhabang na bill, it means nga natapos na do service or na-render na do service pero uwa pa nakabayad si customer. So, the accounts nga affected sa dayang transactions are service revenue at accounts receivable. Accounts receivable do ginagamit for accounts nga collectible sa customer or sa clients. Ma-increase, sa dayang transaction, ma-increase the accounts receivable which is also an asset account and ma-increase fund to service revenue. Therefore, the journal entry for this transaction will be debit to accounts receivable for 25,000 and credit as well to service revenue for the same amount which is 25,000. Next transaction, on January 13, Mr. De La Cruz collected 15,000 cash for services billed last January 10. So sa dayang case, nagbayad na yung 15,000 do customer naging bill last January 10. So the effect will be a decrease sa accounts receivable and also last January 2. So sa rayong batang ang senaryo ay nagbayad at utang do business. So the effect is decrease sa cash kasi nagpagawa at kwarta. It will also decrease the liability kasi bayaran yun. So the journal entry will be a debit to accounts payable, which is a liability, for 5,000 pesos and credit to cash for 5,000 pesos, the same amount. Alright? Remember na dapat always equal the debit and credit side. Next, on January 30, Mr. De La Cruz withdraw 5,000 pesos in cash from the business. So for this transaction, gingbawasan ni Mr. De La Cruz ang nag-invest nga capital. So the effect would be a decrease in capital account at nag-decrease man to cash since nagpagawa man it kwarta. So the journal entry for this case will be debit to De La Cruz withdrawals, which is a capital account contra capital account kasi deduction mo sa capital for 5,000 pesos and credit man sa cash account, which is 5,000 pesos since nagpagawa it kwarta. We have other examples in your module, so pakibasa na lang so that you would learn more about journalizing. Let's now proceed sa next step, which is posting. Sa rayong step, ay gina-transfer na do aton yung money entry from the journal to the ledger. Kada account ay may separate ledger account. Tanan nga transactions for each account ay binasummarize sa ledger. The common yung ginagamit sa ledger ay nga tinatawag na T account or the account because doon ang format ay letter T nga shape. Sa ibabaw with letter T, ginabutang do account title or do account code. Then, sa right side with letter T do debit side and sa left side do credit side. No need na ibutang do description and transactions. Only the date and the amount. After that, pag masugat doon tanan na transaction involving each account, i-compute na natin dayon do totals for each side sa debit and credit. Kung siin do may pinakamataas nga amount nga side, di ka to dayon ibutang do account balance. So for example, kung mataas do total sa debit compared to credit, the balance of the account will be written iya sa debit side. But normally, the balances in account ay kung si insanda naga-increase. Because if andang final balance is sa side, kung si insanda naga-decrease, then it means nga negative andang balances. For example, sa atong journal kaina, the mga gingamit na account ay cash, accounts receivable, supplies, accounts payable, De La Cruz capital, and withdrawal. So dahil mga accounts nga ra, dapat may andang a separate ledger account. So to illustrate the ledger T account, let's do it sa cash, accounts receivable, and accounts payable. So first, sa cash. On January 2, may una nga debit transaction for 35,000. Then, January 13, another debit for 15,000. January 20, may una nga credit transaction for 5,000. And January 30, another credit transaction which is 10,000. So since nasulat yung tanan na transactions under the cash account, let's now compute its balances sa debit and credit sides. So the total for debit is 50,000 and sa credit matahay 10,000. So since mas mabaho do balance or do total in debit, iyang aside natin ibutang do balance it cash. So to compute for the balance, we just have to simply deduct the debit and the credit side. So in this case, the balance of cash will be 40,000 pesos debit. Next, for the accounts receivable. So on January 10, may una kita nga debit entry for 25,000. And on January 13, may una nga credit entry for 15,000. So here, doon ang balance is 10,000 pesos debit man gihapon kasi mas mataas si debit side. Another example, for accounts payable. On January 2, may una nga credit for 5,000 And January 20, may una nga debit entry for 5,000. So since equal na to both sides, the balance of the account will be 0. Alright? So for the next step, after posting the entries sa ledger, masunod na yung obrahon, hay trial balance. Di kara, ginasummarize do list it mga accounts with their balances. Kung ano lang do mga accounts nga gingamit. So usually ginagamit trial to verify if balance tanan nga ning journal entry. If in case nga bukod it balance, do mga possible reasons kara hay may na-skip nga transactions sa ledger, may entry nga bukod it balance do amount, or may una nga mga amount nga nagbagalis nga do pagsugat or do pag-entry. So if hindi balance, do trial balance, need nga i-recheck do entries and amounts. Do pag-list down it accounts sa trial balance, hay nakapasunod from asset, liability, equity or capital, then revenue, and last to expense accounts. So makaraya example and itsura it trial balance. After the trial balance, the next step is adjusting entries. Do adjusting entries hay usually nga ginaubra at the end of every month or at the end of every specific period or pwede man nga annual. Haman kailangan do adjusting entries accounting kasi di ba nag-journal entry yun kita. Dahil ay para ma-reflect the correct balances it mga accounts sa trial balance as well as sa financial statements. Bukod man itanan nga ating naging journal entry, hay kailangan it adjustments. Do mga gina-adjust na lang hay kat mga transactions such as depreciation, it assets, or next, bad debts expense, or kat mga dahil mga accounts receivable na sa tingin naton or sa tingin it owner hay hindi na makolect from the customer. Accrued expenses, accrued income, mga prepayments or advance payments, and deferrals. Sa depreciation, dayakat mga plan, property, and equipment nga ga-depreciate or ga-naba to value due to passage of time or due to usage. Kasi diba, with the exception sa land, kasi huwag ga-depreciate to land. As times go by, ga-decline to quality itatong mga gamit. Thus, ganaba man andang value. So in this case, para mag-reflect andang correct value or the reasonable amount itatong ng mga equipments sa financial statements, we need to have adjusting entries. Alright? So the usual na ginagamit sa pag-depreciate it assets, high at straight line method. May atong na ginatawag na useful life, which is the estimated number of years or number of months nga usable do asset. And the salvage value, which refers sa value na pwede natin mabuo or pwede natin, the amount na pwede natin mabaligya or if i-dispose ko natin do asset after it anong useful life. So to compute for the depreciation, the formula will be the cost of the asset, do anong original cost, i-deduct the salvage value or the amount na pwede pa natong ma-recover after natin i-dispose or ibaligya do asset after the useful life. And then, the balance will be divided dayon sa anang useful life which could be in months or could also be in years. So for example, the company bought an office equipment with an estimated useful life of 5 years on April 1, 2019. So the cost of the equipment here would be 50,000 pesos with an estimated salvage value of 5,000. So take note of the given values, 50,000 for the initial cost of the equipment and 5,000 pesos for the salvage value. So cost less salvage value, that would be 45,000 pesos. Then, i-divide natin sa number of years or sa number of useful life na pwedeng magamit the equipment which is 5 years. So, in this case, 9,000 pesos will be the annual depreciation of the asset. That is, if annual imo nga depreciation recording. Kung preferred nimo nga monthly do depreciation, then you can simply convert the useful life in 2 months. So in this case, the 5 years ay equals to 60 months. So the magiging monthly depreciation tayo natin ay 750 pesos. Kasi 45,000 divided by 60 months. So that's 750 pesos. Sa pag-recorded depreciation, the journal entry ay debit to depreciation expense at credit sa accumulated depreciation. The accumulated depreciation tayo ay under imaw sa asset section at balance sheet. Pero, binatawag imaw na contra account dahil raya ay magiging deduction sa total assets. For a recent example, na magiging entry sa journal pag annual adjustment would be debit to depreciation expense which is 9,000 and credit to accumulated depreciation which is also 9,000. However, pag monthly mataimaw, the same entry pero iba lang ang amount. So in this case, it's 750. Pero again, balikan natin kat atong example. Iya, doon naman the date nga gibakal do asset is April 1, 2019. So pag depreciate natin imaw at the end of the year which is December 31, the number of months nga nagamit do asset is 9 months. Alright? So 9 months multiplied by 750, that is 6,750. So at the end of the year, December 31, the journal entry for this transaction or for the depreciation of this asset will be debit to depreciation expense for the amount of 6,750 and credit to accumulated depreciation in the amount also of 6,750. Next adjustable account, high at bad debts or uncollectible expense account. Raya high at mga ginpautang naton sa customer nga ginatawag accounts receivable. And sa tingin naton ay medyo malabo ron nga masukot or mabayaran it nagutang dahil mga collectibles. Pero pag-compute ka ra ay nakadepende kung pilang percent or kung pilado amount nga sa tingin ninyo ay hindi yun din mabayaran it customer. Doon ang journal entry for these transactions or for this adjustment will be debit to bad debts expense at credit sa allowance for bad debts. So since accumulated depreciation account, allowance for bad debt account ay underman gihapon sa asset section. Pero kontra asset account imaw for accounts receivable. Kasi sa balance sheet, dayang na account, allowance for bad debts will be deducted sa total accounts receivable nga amount. For example, the company estimated that 10% of the accounts receivable is uncollectible. The accounts receivable balance shows an amount of 100,000 pesos. So the 10% it 100,000 high 10,000 pesos. Ibig sabihin, do 10,000 pesos do gina-estimate it company na hindi yun mabayaran it customer. So the entry for this transaction or for this adjustment will be debit to bad debts expense for 10,000 and credit man sa allowance for bad debts for the same amount which is 10,000 pesos. Okay? So do yun do pag record it bad debts expense or uncollectible accounts. Next, we have accrued expenses. Dahil mata yung mga expenses nga na-incur ron or nagamit ron it company or it business pero uwa pa nabayaran. So, anong effect is kailangan mag-record it payable or liability ni company kasi na-consume na and may obligation na si company to pay. In this case, the adjusting entry will be debit to expenses and then credit to payable account. So for example, the company received an electricity bill for the month amounting to 2,000 pesos on December 30, 2019, which the company will pay on its due date on January 3, 2020. So, naka-receive po it bill for electricity, the company, for the consumption for the month of December. So to adjust and correct the balances of the accounts, the journal entry will be debit sa utilities expense, which is 2,000 pesos, and credit man sa utilities payable for the same amount nga 2,000 pesos. So dahil case abi hay nadugangan to expense due to consumption or sa paggamit, and at the same time hay nadugangan man the liability dahil uwa pa nabayaran. Next, we have accrued income. Dahil matahay kabaliktaran, it accrued expense na adjusting entry. Dahil ng mga services nga na-render na sa customer or mga goods nga ha-deliver ron pero uwa pa nabayaran ni customer or ni client. The adjusting entry for this case will be debit to receivable account kasi magiging collectible na imo from the customer or from the client, and credit sa revenue account kasi na-earn ron due income. For example, a company received on July 1, 2019 a 1-year 10% note receivable in the amount of 20,000 pesos. So the principal and interest are payable on the maturity date. So since 6 months do na consume, the interest na na-earn ron at company pagka-end in December ay 1,000 pesos. So to record the adjustment, it will be debit sa interest receivable kasi collectible na the interest for 1,000 pesos, and credit sa interest revenue since may na-earn na income also for 1,000 pesos. Let us now proceed sa prepayment adjusting entry. Dayakat mga nabayaran na in advance pero uwa pa na consume fully. Example kara, hay renta or mga insurance payments. Kasi diba may mga insurance na one-time payment lang pero anong coverage ay either 1 year or more than 1 year. So to make the adjustment sa prepayments, nakadepende with adjusting entry kung ano dumaming ubra na initial or original entry sa journal. So kung the initial entry ay in-recognize the prepayment as asset, which is the common method na ginagamit, the adjusting entry ay magiging debit to expense account and credit sa prepaid account na previously recorded. So para ma-record the amount or the part na itong prepaid account nga nagamit ron or na-consume ron. However, paging consume or paging journalize do prepayments originally as an expense account, then the magiging adjusting entry will be debit sa prepaid account and credit sa expense account. Daya para mag-reflect do tamang amount it expects for the period. And also para ma-revert do tamang account mata it prepayment for that portion nga uwa pa nagamit. For example, on November 1, 2019, XYZ company paid a 1 year in advance office rental for 36,000 pesos. So for 1 year, that would be 3,000 a month. So to journalize the transactions, or to journalize the adjusting entry, para sa rayang example, balikan na natin kung ano ang naging initial entry. So kung do entry na originally ay debit to prepaid rent and credit to cash for 36,000, do adjusting entry ay magiging debit to rent expense for 6,000 at credit man sa prepaid rent for 6,000 since 2 months ron do na-consume nga rent from November 1 to December 31. Kung ano nga original entry ay debit to rent expense and credit to cash for 36,000, the adjusting entry rayon will be debit to prepaid rent na 30,000 kasi dahil do uwa pa na consume, at credit to rent expense also for the same amount, which is 30,000 para makorek the tamang amount for rent expense. The last nga adjustable event or account ay cut deferrals. Raya kan mga nabayaran na customer or client pero uwa pa na-earn the revenue kasi either uwa pa na-render the service sa client or uwa pa na sa customers. So doon ang adjusting entry for this scenario will be will also depend kung ano man doon ang original or initial entries. So for example, XYZ company received advance office rental on October 1, 2019 amounting to 48,000 for 12 months. So this means nga doon ang monthly rental na na-earn should be 4,000 pesos a month. So kung the original entry para sa Ryan transaction ay debit to cash and credit sa unearned rent, which is a liability account, the magiging adjusting entry Ryan ay debit sa unearned rent for 12,000 at credit man sa rent income for the same amount, which is 12,000 pesos para ma-reflect do tama nga value in revenue account. Kung doon naman nga gingamit nga original entry hay kat income method kung siin the original entry hay debit to cash at credit to rent income for 48,000 pesos. Do adjusting entry Ryan hay magiging debit to rent income for 36,000 pesos para mabawasan the revenue ang mag-reflect the correct income na na-earn it business. Since wa pa fully na consume it customer doon ang nabayad, and the credit entry will be sa unearned rent dahil dayang amount ay considered na liability to the customer. So doon na account, doon mga kailangan obrahan and adjusting entries. After i-journalize the events, hay i-post man dahil sa ledger, which is the same procedure sa aton nga obra kaina. Then, sa next step, ma-prepare na dahil kita worksheet wherein ginalista ang ginasummarize ng mga balances in accounts. So, raya the format it worksheet. May column for unadjusted trial balance, which is kat first trial balance nga ginubra, then kat adjusting entries, then do adjusted trial balance after ma-post do adjusting entries sa ledger, and then the next two columns will be for the balance sheet and income statement. So sa dayang columns hay i-transfer lang do mga accounts nga applicable para sa dayang financial reports. Once na ma-transfer na the account balances sa column for the financial statements, hay obrahan na tayo at formal report which is according to the format for the financial statements. The included kara hay at name it business, title it report, for example, statement of financial position or statement of financial performance, pwede man nga balance sheet or income statement. Ang due dates followed by the account records. So for the balance sheet, the ginagamit for the date or for the period will be the phrase as of, for example, as of December 31, 2020 or kat actual date mismo nga ginubra the financial statements. Sa income statement do ginabutang is either for the month ended, for example, for the month ended October 31, 2020. Or pwede man for the year ended, for example, for the year ended December 31, 2020. So either lang sa doon yung daywa. Kasi ibig sabihin it for the month or for the year ended, the income statement is only for that specific period. So after doing the financial statements, the next step sa accounting cycle hay kat closing entries or closing of accounts. So not all accounts hay pina-close. The mga need lang i-close hay kat temporary accounts like withdrawals, revenue, and expenses. The revenue and expenses hay pina-close gamit the income and expense summary account, which is then close man dayon sa capital account. The withdrawals man hay pina-close directly sa capital account. The purpose kara hay para ma-zero out the mga temporary accounts in preparation for the next period and also para ma-transfer the earnings or income sa capital account. The entries hay usually nga makarat. For revenues, since ana ma normal balance hay credit, ana ma closing entry will be debit to revenue para ma-zero out anang balance, then credit sa income and expense summary account. For the expenses since ana normal entry is debit side, the closing entry hay and expense summary account and credit sa expenses para ma-zero out man to balance it expenses. After that, kung ano to balance ni income and expense summary account, whether debit or credit, i-close dayon with the capital account para ma-zero out man dayang account. So doon na bilin lang dapat high cut capital account ni owner or ni shareholder. Kung debit si summary, credit si capital. Kung credit man si summary, then debit dapat si capital. And for the withdrawal mata, the closing entry, high debit sa capital and credit sa withdrawals. After the closing entries, maobraw man dahil it trial balance. Pero this time, lumabilin na lang dapat high cut balance sheet accounts which are assets, liabilities, and capital account. Wag dapat it revenue and expense na account kasi in-close yun sa dam. And lastly, the last step for the accounting cycle is the reversal entry. Dahil step, hay ginaubra sa start in bagong period. And daya hay usually na ginaubra sa accruals. Gina-reverse man lang simply do accrual entries nga adjust sa end in previous na period. No other accounts involved. Ginabaliskad mo malang do imo nga journal entry originally. Kung ano lang gid do accounts na ginagamit sa adjustments, dato man gihapon do accounts na ginagamit sa reversal. Dahil nga step, hay optional man lang and nakadepende sa discretion it owner or it accountant na nag-obra it records. So yun, that ends the discussion for our topic, accounting cycle. Thank you very much for listening and may God bless us all. Stay safe.